Washington, Dan Snyder sells the team. Freedom. Freedom. I think when looking back on this, the Dan Snyder era, I saw a funny statistic that there's 3 name changes and only 2 playoff wins, which is funny. And a lot of people are always curious about what it was like with him as the owner. It's not like the owner has too much of an effect on directly on the players. I will say this, my whole time there always felt like it's always, even being on the outside, you see it more objectively now, but it's always felt like you've always seen this dark cloud that's over Washington. When you're there and in it, you don't necessarily know, you know that it can be national news, but it's not like you're in another state actually hearing everybody else talk about it. You just think you're in your own shit, you're in your own drama. All these reporters, all they want to fucking talk about is finding stories inside this Dan Snyder era. And when you're talking to players don't have a whole lot to speak on because it's not like, A, that's the boss, but B, that's not like there's actually stories to know. I'm sure there are players out there that probably know some stuff, but it's not like a known thing playing for that organization. But I think what sucks is knowing, being a player that was there for 5 years, is just knowing that it never actually got better. Like, because when you're a player and you're there, I know when I got to start some games and then I became a starter and everything else, like the core group of guys that were on the team, like we had some good talented teams that just didn't get the job done. And that always sucked. And you always heard people talking about the outside noise and the outside cloud surrounding the Washington organization and how toxic of a culture it was. And from me in my shoes and a couple of the players' shoes in our position, it's not like you ever wanted to feed that narrative because you felt like we were trying to implement and do the things culture-wise that didn't really merit what the outside noise was saying. Granted, we were naive and ignorant. We didn't really understand all of that high-level stuff going on at the organization. But it just sucks knowing that, you know, there's a quote out there, you always want to leave a place better than you left it. And you look back at the Washington stuff and my time there, and it just sucks knowing that you were part of it and you were part of a great group of guys and even at times like good staffs that unfortunately we just didn't get it done. So their jobs didn't prolong and players didn't get re-signed, and you just always felt like it was something that, man, if we just make this play or do this right and win a couple more games, the ball will get rolling. And it just sucks knowing like that never came into fruition. But now being out of it for 5 years now and seeing it from afar, you actually see how toxic of a place it was, how many headlines are truly in the national media a few times a year with this team that you look at it from the top down that ultimately affects the organization, which affects the coaches, which leaks into the players. So you never saw from that high level when you were in it as a player versus being outside of it now and just seeing it for what it was. And it's like, man, there'll be times where you sit in battle because I love my time in Washington. And those were my favorite years playing ball with a group of guys, stuff like that. And you almost hesitate wanting to speak highly on it because you know how much negativity surrounds that logo nationally. And you're just like, you know, when you're out of it, you're kind of just like, well, what can I really do now versus just pour into allowing more of a platform for people to talk ill of Washington. So I am fired up that Dan Snyder's out of it. I'm fired up that he sold it off to, I forget who. I know Magic Johnson was part of the team. The Moans, the 76ers.
What did it sell for? 6.2
Yeah,
billion?
something like that, 6.2 billion or something. He's obviously getting paid, but you know, it's like he's one of those Succession type fucking families, bro. Talking. There was one time it was like we were doing a team appreciation. We were doing like a team building activity. Coach Gruden called off practice one day. We're fired up, and again, a good group of guys, like a good roster.
I mean, the coaching staff that came from there that are all head coaches now.
Yeah, that tree, bro. You had Gruden, you had Shanahan. Before Gruden, it was Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur, O'Connell. I mean, you had some guys that came from that tree. And then a lot of them with Green Bay right now with Joe B, Olivedati, that's with LaFleur out there. But I remember one time we had this team building where we went and watched the movie. And it was, I believe it was, what was that movie with Mark Wahlberg? No, Contraband. Yeah, Transformers. We were watching Contraband, and the actor Not Mark Wahlberg, but the other main actor that was like his brother-in-law, the blonde-haired cat. Good actor, came from like Alpha Dog. He was there. But I remember we're sitting in like the middle. We had the theater rented out, and Snyder and Bruce Allen come to the movie. They sit right in front of us, and you can just tell that they're hammered, like they're just drunk. We're obviously kind of messing around behind them, like the boss is in, stuff like that. And it's kind of my first time really seeing Snyder because they weren't around. Bruce Allen and Snyder were just not around the team. They weren't really at practice. Not the way John Robinson would be with Vrabel, the Titans, where Amy would come around every now and then, or when they brought in McLuhan as the GM for the Redskins at the time. He was around practice all the time. Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder were never around us, but they're around us at this movie. And you can just tell they're hammered. And literally before the movie starts, like they're being loud and shit like that. And Dan's like, shut the fuck up. And literally putting his finger weirdly, like putting it on his lips and like touching his nose. He's like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up to Bruce Allen, the president. And he's like, drink this, drink this. And they're like fucking drinking. It was just such a weird thing to see out of like the owner and the president at the time, to where like me and my boy Adam Hayward were like, yeah, what the fuck is going on with these boys? But just like a weird exchange. That's not a story that's like an all tell story, but just my honestly like singular experience around Dan Snyder. That was it. So glad he sold the team.